Hi guys, I hope you guys are doing well. So today we are looking at the eye, right? So the first thing that I want us to know about the eye is actually that the eye is basically I want us to know that the eye is actually associated with the brain. So whatever the eye receives, the eye will send it to the central nervous system where it will be interpreted, right? The eye already is an interpreter, but there are certain things that actually lead the eye, or there are certain factors that lead the eye to help the brain process what it has seen. You understand? So the eye is not only associated with the brain, it is an interpreter, so is the brain. We already know the brain to be an interpreter, right? So it's not only an interpreter, but it is a receiver because it receives impulses. So it is a receiver and an interpreter. So the brain is a receiver and interpreter, right? So is the eye. The eye is the interpreter. The eye is the receiver. So before it interprets, it will receive. So now when the eye takes the information, it knows that it will take the information further to the brain. So we have two receptors, the eye and the brain. When the eye sees something, it will locate it to the brain, it will send it to the brain, right? We will be doing the brain soon, but then what we know is that whatever we see in the physical, um, you know, third dimensional world, the eye is able to transport that to the central nervous system. So this is actually human response to the environment. As humans, we respond to the environment, whether we are responding to the environment externally or we respond to the environment internally. But there are certain things, whether those responses are said or they are left unsaid, we respond. Now, the responses that we're interested in when it comes to life sciences, it is the biological responses, the responses that are natural, that occur within our sense organs, because we sense what we sense and we respond to whatever that we respond to because of we have felt that or we have sensed that through the sex or the sense organs. So it is a human response to the environment. To see, it's a human response to the environment. To interpret, it's a human response to an environment through a certain sense organ, right? So we have two sense organs. So we have two sense organs that we deal with. So the first sense organ that we have is the eye, the one that we are talking about, and the second one that we have is the ear. So these are organs that we use to receive these messages, to interpret these messages. But there are certain functions and factors within the eye, within the ear, that help us to actually receive and interpret, right? So we call these sense organs because they are able to sense. If we never had sense organs, we wouldn't be able to sense. We wouldn't be able to actually understand what is happening in the external world or the internal world, because we don't have anything that tells us. So the sense organs are able to tell us what is happening to us, right? So I want you to keep that in mind, that the importance of sense organs or the importance of senses, they are able to tell us of what is happening around us, as we have certain what stimulus that we actually what feel, that we receive. The stimulus is due to the response that we feel, that we want to receive, the response that we want to take out. So I hope that makes sense right there. So we call these sense organs because they are able to sense. So as we were speaking about these sense organs, so sorry for saying sex organs. These sense organs, these sense organs are receptors because, as I mentioned, we feel something, we sense something, and we respond to something. So the eye and the ear are the receptors in which a response will come from. A response will come from the eye and the ear after the course of the nervous system, the central nervous system, has functioned, because it will come from the eye and the ear to the central nervous system. The central nervous system will take it out to the effector. And we also know through the reflex arc or the reflex action that the effector is the last receptor, you can say, that actually is able to conduct what happened in the central nervous system, or what took place, right? Or the response in which it has to basically do that, in which it is responsible to do. So the eye and the ear are the receptors, because those are the first things that we see in the external. But these have receptor cells within them. These receptor cells are the ones that are basically the sensors or the sensors to actually take the information to somewhere else before it could be interpreted and overlaid with the response. So they consist of receptor cells, meaning that they can grasp or receive information. So with your eyes, you can see. With your ears, you can hear, because there are certain receptor cells within those eyes, within those ears, that can basically grasp and receive the information. So the paragraph that I've written now says we have senses. When I say we have senses, there are 5 senses in our biological living, right? These senses help us to actually sense what we sense and respond to what we sense. So we have senses, the stimulus, and the receptor cells. So we have senses, the stimulus, and the receptor cells, in which the stimulus is converted into a nerve impulse, plus parts of sex organs, eye and ear, responsible for this action. So we have certain senses. We have the 5 senses, right? We have namely the sight, the hearing, we have the touch, we have the smell, and we have the taste, right? So those are the senses that we have, and we have a certain stimulus that we feel, or we are supposed to respond to, or we taste, or we hear, or we basically touch, or we in all types of ways you can describe the senses. So we have that stimulus that basically we are able to grasp or receive. So we know that a stimulus is a change in the external environment, right? And we know that these are the receptor cells, right? So this stimulus is converted into a nerve impulse, meaning that it is changed from the external environment. When it is supposed to go within the internal environment, it is now converted into a nerve impulse, because these nerve impulses cannot flow or cannot move outside the internal environment. So they have to be internal, right? These impulses need to be internal. Plus, we have the parts of the sense organs. We have the parts of the sense organs of which is the eye and the ear. We have certain parts that are able to receive that stimulus and sense that stimulus through its receptor cells and convert that stimulus into a nerve impulse. There are specific parts responsible for this action. Do you understand, guys? All right, so for now, I just want us to look at the only sense that we will be dealing with, right? The only sense that we will be dealing with. We are going to be dealing with the sense of sight, because it's the one that is responsible for what, for hearing. So we are going to be dealing with the sense of sight. I just want us to look in that specifically. I'll make another video whereby we talk about all the other senses, but now I want us to look at the sense of sight. So what I've written above is specific. We have senses, the stimulus, and the receptor. We have the stimulus of light when it comes to the senses. So as I was saying, we have certain senses. Sight is one part or one sense within the five senses. We have the stimulus and the receptor cells, in which the stimulus is converted into a nerve impulse, plus the part of the sense organ responsible for this action. Now listen, so this sight has a stimulus of what? Of light. So we have senses, right? The stimulus, right? And the receptor cells. So what receptor cells do we have? These receptor cells are called the photoreceptors. The photoreceptors, right? And what are these photoreceptors receiving the stimulus through? These photoreceptors are called the rods and cones. They receive the stimulus. They are able to convert the stimulus and turn it into a nerve impulse. Remember, it's not the eye that basically turns the stimulus or converts it into a nerve impulse, but it is the photoreceptors that do that. And these photoreceptors are rods and cones. And this sense organ, it has a stimulus of light. And these are the receptors in which receive the light. So we have to see in order to receive the light. And we need to get the light through this. So we receive the stimulus in the external environment, light. We sense it via our sight, and we receive it, or it is conducted or transmitted via the photoreceptors within the sense within the organ. Do you understand, guys? Specifically the rods and the cones. So the light that we see or that we perceive or we receive, it's either dim or bright. I didn't want to say average, because when we say average, it doesn't really make sense of what we are speaking about. So the light can be dim or bright. So I've broken down the eye here, right? So the question that I asked is, what is its purpose or aim or importance or function or existence? What does it do? I'm trying to ask this question in many type of ways so that you can understand why the eye is there, and it is only there for one reason. Whether it is its importance, its function, its aim, its purpose, its existence, it's only there for one thing. Now, it is responsible for sight. It is responsible for conducting sight. We have eyes in order to see. So we don't question what these are. We only do that back then in primary, where we like head, nose, eyes. We know now what an eye is, but we want to know what is its purpose. We want to know, what does it do. We want to know how does it go about doing its function. So it is responsible for conducting sight. We have these eyes in order to see. So it conducts sight. It is responsible for sight. Right? So the second question that I will ask, the second question says, how is it responsible for the sight? Or what does it need to conduct it? Remember, we said it is responsible for sight. It is